All praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Makar Kwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect to the nation of Israel. This is going to be a lesson on Johann Blumenbach, who was an Edomite that tried to change how nationalities are viewed and tried to make nationalities be based on the skeletons and different things like that. And he was the first person to try and start making your nationality be decided on the color of your skin, right? Which in the modern times that we're living in right now, these Edomites like to complain about how people mention skin color and stuff like that. Yet they're the ones that actually came up with these classifications on race, man. All right, so I'm just gonna read. I'm gonna read a bit of this, and I'm gonna go to the scriptures and show why what they're saying is not true, or what he said and what the statements that he made was not true. So let me read this. It says he was one of the first to explore the study of the human being as an aspect of natural history. His teachings in comparative anatomy were applied to his classification of human races, of which he claimed there were 5: Caucasian, Mongolian, Malayan, Ethiopian, and American. And when he says American, he's referring to like Native Americans, which we know is the tribe of Gad. All right. Now let me carry on. It says he was a member of what modern historians call the Göttingen School of History. Blumenbach's peers considered him one of the greatest theorists of his day, and he was a mentor of influence on the many and he was a mentor of influence on many of the next generation of German biologists, including Alexander von Humboldt. Now, this was a deception done in order to try and stop the Israelites from knowing who they was, man, because they knew who the Israelites were when they came over to the land of America initially, right? And this guy was born 1752, I believe. Yeah, he was born 1752, right? And he died in 1840, right? But when the tribe of Gad was in America, right? The so-called Native Americans, right? And all the other tribes that came from the 10 tribes, right? Christopher Columbus brought a interpreter called Louis del Toros, and he could speak Hebrew. He was a Hebrew interpreter, and he knew other Shemitic languages as well. So they knew that this wasn't just some savages. They knew exactly who it was, man. Because why would you bring a Hebrew interpreter otherwise? But these people are very sneaky, man. Then they knew who he was, right? Now I'm gonna go to the scriptures and show where these classifications that this guy came up with are BS, right? Let's go to the Bible, because the Bible is what you're supposed to use to decide what nationalities people are. This is Genesis chapter 10 and verse 1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood, and these sons became nations. Now, let me just quickly jump to verse 5. In fact, I'll go verse 2 first. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Teres. Jump to verse 5. But these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. So these became nations, right? Verse 6. And the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan. Now let me jump down. Verse 20. These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. So the Genesis 10 is going into different nations that are being formed, right? There's 18 nations in the Bible. When you look it up, you have to go to Genesis, the 10th chapter, right? And then you go to Genesis, the 25th chapter, and the last two nations were the Israelites and the Edomites. Verse 22, and the verse 22, the children of Shem, Elam, and Asher are Faxad and Lud and Aram, right? Verse 31, these are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. And now when you jump to Genesis 25, it goes into two more nations that get made. Genesis chapter 25 and verse 23. And Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. That's the Edomites. Verse 26. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 60 years old when she bare him. So that's the end of the nations being built, right? But if you go by the classifications of this Edomite Johann Blumenbach, right, there'll be confusion, because he said, let me go to it. He said the classifications were Caucasian, Mongolian, Malayan, Ethiopian, and American. But for what this guy is saying then is that your classification is based on purely your image, right? But then that would take away Revelation 7 and 9, by where there's going to be several different Israelites that were scattered into different nations, and it would also take away what Yahweh's put within the world, by where your lineage is decided by the seed of your father, right? And also, just based on this classification as well, he's tried to say that the Americans, meaning the Native Americans, right, is a separate nation than the Ethiopian, and he's tried to group us in, the so-called darker skinned tribes. He's tried to group them in with the Ethiopian, right? But we already know that the Ethiopians and the Israelites are not the same nation, and that's according to scriptures. Let's get it. They might look similar, but they're not the same. They might be both dark-skinned, but they're not the same. Amos chapter 9 and verse 7. Are, are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel, saith Yahweh? Have I not brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Kaphar, and the Syrians from Ker? No, so what that's saying is that the Israelites look similar, but they're not the same, right? Moses looked similar to an Egyptian, right? He looked similar. He was mistaken for an Egyptian by some women from Midian, of the Midianites. He was mistaken, but he was not the same. He was an Israelite from the tribe of Levi, which I'll quickly prove. Exodus chapter 2 and verse 1. Exodus chapter 2 and verse 1. And there went a man of the house of Levi and took a wife, a daughter, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. So Moses had a mother and a father, right? That was both from the tribe of Levi, which it only took for his father for him to be of the tribe of Levi anyway. But his mother was also from the tribe of Levi. Verse 10. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, and she called his name Moses, and she said, because I drew him out of the water. So Moses was from the tribe of Levi, right? But let's see what the scriptures say regarding Moses, right? Let me read this. This is Exodus chapter 2 and verse 15. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian and sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the sheep came and drove them, and the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Ruel their father, he said, How is it that ye are come soon? How is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock. So Moses was mistaken for an Egyptian, right? Joseph was also mistaken for an Egyptian, but he was not an Egyptian. Paul also was mistaken for an Egyptian, and I'm going to get that scripture now. But these Christians, man, these Christians and these Edomites in general, they're very carnal, and they like to try and base everything off what their eyes can see. And that's why they like to try and call us black Hebrew Israelites, even though there's tribes on the 12 tribe chart that we believe in that would not be considered as black people. Mexicans in this world are not considered as black people, right? But these Christians try and just focus on a color that they want to try and push on us and try and make out like we're just talking about black this, black that. But that's what they're talking about. That's what they do. They talk about color. But now that the colour scheme that they made is not benefiting them no more, now they want to try and steer away from that, the damn devils. This is Acts chapter 21 and verse 38. Art, art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days made us an uproar, and led us out of the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers? But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarshish, a city in Sicilia, a citizen of no mean city. I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. So Moses was not an Egyptian, and he let it be known that he's not. Right? He let it be known that he ain't no Egyptian, man. But they wanted to try and they mistook him for an Egyptian. And let me just go further into how Paul goes into his own nationality. This is Romans chapter 1 and verse 11. Romans chapter 11 and verse 1. I say then, have God cast away his people? God forbid, for I am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So what are these people talking about? What are they talking about, man? What's this guy talking about, trying to say that there's classifications of Caucasian, Malayan, Ethiopian, American, and all of this stuff that he's coming with it? That's not true. There's 18 nations in the Bible, right? And there's more things, you know what, let me get this scripture. I've got some more scriptures that I wrote down. This is Numbers chapter 1 and verse 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, by their poll. So your nationality is decided by your father. But the way how Esau wants to try and do things is he wants to just be able to try and look at somebody, oh, his skin's dark, so he's this nation. Oh, her skin's light, so she's a Caucasian nation. Whereas that's not how Yahweh does it. Yahweh looks upon the spirit. He doesn't do things how man does it. Right? And therefore, because we're trying to be perfect like Yahweh is perfect, we're not supposed to do it that way neither. This is 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse 6. And it came to pass, when they were come, he looked on Eliab and said, surely Yahweh's anointed is before him, because he would have been tall. He probably would have been a handsome guy or whatever. He would have been strong. He would have looked like a king, right? He would have looked, compared to all the people that was around there, he would have looked like he's got to be the chosen guy. He's got to be the man that's going to be chosen to be the new king to replace Saul. But he wasn't, because Saul was tall, right? Saul was tall. There was the scripture say that Saul was a head taller than other men. So Saul was big, Saul was tall, Saul was strong. So it would have been an assumption that the new king that was going to replace him was also going to be like that, right? But that was wrong. Verse 7. But Saul said, but the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature. Let me read that again. But Yahweh said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but Yahweh looketh on the heart, right? Yahweh looks on the spirit, right? He looks upon the deeper things within a man to decide who they even are. But this world looks at it carnally, right? If two men was to say the same exact message, right, and one's rich, and one's tall, right, and one gets all the women, and another man's poor and broke and saying exactly the same thing, everyone's gonna try and flock to the richer guy to try and get the message, right? Because they want to try and get the extra things that he's got from them, because they're not really there for the message, they're there for the external things. Whereas if they're really about the Bible, right, then, or really about the message, what's being spoken about, then they would go to whichever person is closest to them to get the message from. And that's why this world is going to be destroyed, man. That's why a lot of people are going to be doomed, because they was looking on the image of the people that said what was happening, and they didn't like it. So because the people didn't fit their particular imagery of what they thought that a man of the Lord's supposed to look like, right? Or what they thought that a man of the Lord's supposed to speak like, they disregard the word, because it's not about the word for them. It's about trying to follow after someone's lifestyle that they want to try to copy and emulate. John chapter 7 and verse 24. Judge not according to their appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Now, obviously, if there's a man wearing a dress, then you will judge to their appearance, because a man's not supposed to wear a dress. But if a man's just wearing scruffy clothes or whatever that are lawful to wear, but he's speaking the truth, then you're supposed to hear that he's speaking the truth. You're not supposed to try and judge his appearance. You're supposed to judge with righteous judgment, and that includes the color of a person's skin. The scriptures say, don't trouble them that turn to the Lord from among the Gentiles, because really, that person is an Israelite. This is Acts chapter 15 and verse 19. Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the Gentiles are turned to Yahweh, or are turned to the Most High. We're not supposed to trouble them. And now, just to prove that this guy's classification of the 5 classifications and all of this is false, there's going to be Israelites that are going to look like every single nation, that are going to get beamed up and saved. This is Revelation chapter 7 and verse 9. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hand, and cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our power, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. Because there's Yahweh's their Father, and Yahweh Shai, who is the Lamb, was the sacrifice for their sins, because they was also Israelites that were just scattered in different lands, man. And I'm going to end the lesson there. Johann Blumenbach, the Edomite that attempted to redefine races, but he failed, man, because we still found out who we are anyway. And now the world's trying to get rid of that belief system that he had in the first place anyway. But it was Edomites that started this whole judging by skin colour thing anyway, or trying to say, oh, your skeleton's this shape, so that means you're that nation. If Esau could really know what nationality people were, he would attempt to wipe out all of the Israelites off the earth completely. But Yahweh's made it so that there's a thing that only he can know, to be able to find out who is an Israelite or not. And then there's even deeper things to where only Yahweh can know who's of the elect or not. Esau can't know this, even though he's trying to search it out diligently, but he's not going to be able to. And I'm going to end the lesson there. All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elected nation of Israel. Shalom.